Aloha champions, and welcome to this Monday social studies video. Last time we talked about what the lives of colonists in the early Americas, what their lives would have looked like and what kind of things they would have done. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about the colonies. So we have 13 original colonies, such as Massachusetts, New Hampshire, more Massachusetts, because, Maine wasn't Maine until later on. Rhode Island, Connecticut, my personal favorite, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. We have the red is our New England colonies. We have the Mid-Atlantic colonies and the Southern colonies. So that's just a perspective of what we're looking at as we get into Chapter 2. And Chapter 2 is asking you if you lived in the colonies. Our big question for today is, what was daily life like for free colonial children growing up on a farm in comparison to the enslaved children? Okay, so we are going to be talking about some heavy subjects here. We're talking about the free people and the enslaved children and what their life would have been like. So let's dive into this. Growing up, what would it have been like to grow up in the colonies? Let's spend a little time finding it out. We'll begin by imagining that you are a colonist and we'll look at what your family and daily life look like. Your family probably lives on a farm, because 9 out of 10 colonial families lived on a farm. Chances are your house is pretty crowded. That's because colonists had very large families. You had a lot of brothers and sisters. But what are the chances that you would have your own bedroom? Just about zero. You not only don't have your own bedroom, you don't even have your own bed. You share a bed or a straw mattress on the floor with other children in the family. So here we have some kids who are looking at what appears to be a cat with some kittens behind a bush, but it says that colonial children had a lot of brothers and sisters. While the house is crowded, you are grateful to have so many kids in the family. You don't have neighborhood friends because you don't really have a neighborhood. Only people living in villages and towns have neighbors, so your brothers and sisters are your built-in playmates. Of course, everyone has regular chores to do. That includes you. Everyone's day begins at dawn, if not earlier. If you are a boy, your first job is to bring in firewood and to build the fire. But matches didn't exist yet, so you hope there is still a burning coal in the fireplace from the night before. If not, you have to start a brand new fire, probably by rubbing sticks together to get sparks and to ignite it. After breakfast and your morning prayers, you head out to the fields with your father. You plant and hoe and clear away brush from new land that's to be planted next year. You even help to repair a fence or two. So here's an example of what their work could look like, including feeding cows and horses and using a pitchfork to shovel hay to feed those livestock. If you were a girl, you would help your mother make candles and preserve foods, starting right after breakfast. Your chores probably also included feeding the animals. The rest of your morning is spent helping cook the noon meal. In the afternoon, you sew, knit, weave, or spin yarn. Did you notice that there's no time in a day's schedule for school? Well, that's because you probably wouldn't go to school. Perhaps you did last year and the year before, but you can read and write now. Most colonial parents feel that once you can do that, you don't need any more school. Chances are, though, you learn to read and write at home. An older brother or sister or maybe a parent teaches you when you are about 5 or 6. If no one in your family can read, then you might be sent to learn at another farmhouse where someone else can. It is considered important to learn how to read. Section 2, Children of Enslaved People. Okay? So vocabulary, enslaved, is forced to become a slave. Plantation, a large farm where cash crops are grown by the person who owns the land. Okay? So, the lives of enslaved children. If you happen to be a child of an enslaved family on a plantation, your life was different. When you are quite young, maybe 5 or 6, there's plenty of time for play. In fact, some of your playmates are probably the children of the plantation owner. You may fish, pick berries, and freely explore the plantation fields together. But then, when you reach about 7 or 8 years old, you start to take care of your younger brothers and sisters. Also, the plantation owner begins to give you jobs, like sweeping the yard, feeding the chickens, and collecting the eggs. Even at this age, however, you start to understand that you do not have the same freedoms as the plantation owner's children. So here we have the enslaved, oftentimes African American or Black communities working out in the fields. The big change in your life comes when you're about 10 years old. Now you begin life as an enslaved worker. You work in the fields, doing the same hard work as all the other adults. You plant, you plow, and you pick cotton from sunup to sundown. Unlike the plantation owner's children, you probably can't read. Depending on the colony that you live in, the law may actually forbid anyone from teaching you to read. Sickness and cures. 2 new vocabulary terms. We have disease or sickness, and we have herbs. Herbs are plants used to give food flavor or can sometimes be used as medicine. Sickness is a serious problem in every colonial home. Many children die from disease. Little is really known about why people get sick or how they can get well and stay well. A lot of people think they know, though. They make their own medicines from plants called herbs and also from the roots and barks of trees. Do you have a cut that isn't healing? Swelling that won't go down? A bad cold, perhaps? There's sure to be an herb or a root that will cure you, maybe? Some of these herbs have been used for hundreds of years and really do seem to help. Others, though, are not so helpful. There are also some special tricks that are supposed to help you get better. For example, to bring down a fever, your parents might cut your toenails. They might put the clippings into a small linen bag and tie the bag around the neck of an eel before putting the eel in a tub of water. When the eel dies, your fever supposedly goes down. One of the best educated men in the Massachusetts colony recommended that cure. Even if you are just feeling tired, there's a special recipe to help. You will roast a toad and grind it up. Then you add boiling water to make a kind of tea. You drink it and you'll be feeling lively in no time. For a cold or sore throat, sprinkle pepper on a piece of meat and wrap it around your throat. So here's some other colonial cures. You can feed your children only plain foods and not so much sugar, spice, or salt. Not eating between meals except for dry bread. Keep your kids away from candy. See that they sleep on a hard bed, no soft feathers. Bathe them in cold water, even in the winter. Give them very thin shoes that will leak and let in water. A famous man got this idea by noting that poor people often went barefoot and didn't seem to get sick from them. Strawberries, cherries, and gooseberries are good for children. Melons, peaches, plums, and grapes are not. Even though they are tasty, don't give them any. Of course, you could go to a doctor. There are a few doctors in the colonies, but visiting one probably won't do much good. There are no special schools for training doctors in the colonies, and doctors don't know much more than most others about making people well. Doctors do have a favorite cure for almost any illness, though. It's called bleeding the patient. To do this, doctors cut a vein in the patient's arm to let blood come out. Of course, the best thing to do is just stay well and not get sick in the first place. So, hopefully you learned a little bit about the diseases that happened in colonial life and what the lives of colonial children were, and what the lives of the enslaved colonial children might be like. I know it's a tough subject to wrap our head around, but hopefully you did learn something through this reading. I hope you enjoyed. Answer the questions on Google Classroom. Stay awesome, and I will talk to you real soon.